Welcome to Urban Game Changers of Texas. This is Robert Oscar Lopez. I'm going to be your professor for a series of short video tutorials to teach you about what's going on in your kids' schools and why you should be very worried about the so-called LGBT curriculum. There are people out there who have a lot of money, groups like the Human Rights Campaign, like the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, GLSEN, all these people who have a lot of money behind their names who want one thing. They want to get your child to believe that everything is cool with being a homosexual and being transgender. By child, I'm talking 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. I'm not kidding. But in particular, if you're a person of color or if you're working class and you have to struggle with a lot of difficulties and hurdles in life, this is just one added problem. So let's get a couple things straight. First of all, nobody's born gay. That's a myth. It's not, nothing is set in stone until you're in your mid-20s. The frontal lobe of your brain does not develop until you're in your mid-20s. And the majority of people who report that they have same-sex desires or they have cross-gender identification when they are children or teenagers, they overcome that by the time they're in their mid-20s. Just think back to when you were 12, 13, 14, 15. That's a time of massive, rapid change in your brain. You're going through all kinds of hormonal ups and downs. You might feel frustrated with the confines of your domestic space. You can just be wrong. You can think that you have figured the world out and you know a better way to do things and your parents have gotten it all wrong. And you might be arrogant. Now, let's add to that another element. You're 13, 14, 15, you have all these desires, you're kind of a runaway in the making. And then on top of it, since you were 4 or 5 or 6, people have hyped up this idea of being gay or of being trans. You need to dedicate yourself to this new life. It's really cool. You get to join a subculture. Everyone kind of applauds you. They think you're courageous. Then on top of all that, you're a black or Latino boy who's 16 years old. That's when you're going to be more attractive than any other time in your life to those older gay men who are hanging around. They're going to be around your community just like they are in every community. This might seem like a really attractive option. This is not something that you want for your child. This is not something your child should want for himself. I know because I came out when I was a teenager. I first started in the gay lifestyle when I was 13, and I continued in it between 13 and age 28. Age 28, I fell in love with a woman, married her, and I've been totally happy and blessed ever since then. I'm 46 years old right now. Who was I when I was 13? When I was 13, I didn't have a dad around. I was raised by my mom, and she was in a lifelong relationship with another woman. People had made fun of me. I had very feminine mannerisms. And yeah, when I looked at boys, I thought they were really attractive. When I looked at guys who were really good at sports and who had that lean, stomach where you could see all their grooves and they had like biceps in their arm, I thought, wow, that's really amazing. I would look at girls and girls turned me on too, but it all seemed so impossible to me. Girls weren't particularly nice to me in school because I was effeminate. They had made fun of me, and so I was a little bit negative towards them. Not that I didn't think that they were attractive, but I just didn't think that was ever going to happen for me. So then one night in 1984, when I was 13 years old, I was hanging out with 2 older teenage boys, these 2 white boys who were a couple years older than me, and we were getting drunk because that was how I tried to impress boys my age. I always, in the years following, told myself that I had wanted it, but then when I became an adult and I learned about sexual assault and what it does to your brain, I realized that it was sex abuse, that I'm a survivor of sex abuse. They teamed up on me, and my mother was in the hallway outside listening, and by the time she knocked and we had to try to gather ourselves, one of the older white boys was so sick he had to go to the hospital. And I remember, by the time I got up the next morning and I felt like something had changed. Like my body was different. That was a surprising part of it. I thought it should have felt better than it did, but I was so happy that somebody had looked at me and seen me as attractive enough to want to rape me. I was a Puerto Rican kid living in a white neighborhood, and these were 2 really what I considered incredibly good-looking older white boys who were really highly respected. And to me, that was better than being called a spick or a nigger. Of course, sadly, they didn't want to be with me again after they had already done that. And so I started looking for something. I thought that if I just kept on going out there and looking for other white guys, that eventually I would feel the pleasure that I expected to feel. The other Puerto Rican boys that I saw who were my contemporaries, who were getting in trouble, who got girls pregnant, who were getting in fights over the girls, who were in jail, etc., I felt like I was ahead of them because I had this access to these white men who would give me gifts and give me money and would help me get into programs and get jobs. But in the end, it was destroying my body. It actually hurts. The sex act hurts. You can start out at the beginning in this life thinking that you can avoid anal sex. Eventually, people expect you to be the bottom in sex. And once that happens, it hurts. You bleed, and your body can't recover from that. You're going to have trouble going to the bathroom pretty much for the rest of your life. And so I started having to take poppers, these amyl nitrates. I would sniff them because that would make my body more able. And I was really having the sex for the drugs and doing the drugs for the sex. It gives you a rush into your brain, and your whole body gets really, really hot. But the next day, you're dehydrated, you have really bad headaches, your throat hurts, and you have really bad diarrhea. It starts to show on your face. You start finding it harder and harder to keep a very trim, athletic build. You realize that gay men are primarily focused on your physical looks. They like youth, they like muscular, they like no fat, and they can't deal with complications. The slightest thing that's going wrong in your life, they're gone. And once I had sex with a woman, I realized this is what it really is. This is what sex is. I felt like a man after having sex with a woman. I felt like I had connected with someone spiritually. It felt terrifying to be with a woman because I realized, wow, she could really ruin me emotionally because I'm so into this and I'm so connected to her. That's something that I never felt with a man. The flip side of it is with men, it's just one after another, and sooner or later, the sex isn't fulfilling. The racism in the gay community was humiliating. You're really attractive as a young Latino to older white men who want to have this weird kind of adoptive father-son relationship with you. You're the boy and he's the older man, and he finds that really enchanting, and often they felt like this was the son they never had, but you're still being treated like a child. Or don't listen to their stories about how they were bullied and think that they're just innocent victims. They're very violent in those relationships. Once you get into that world, they hit each other. They beat each other up. They kill each other. My experience really matches the statistics. People who come out of the closet as gay, who are totally supported by their family, who are supported by their community, who are not held back by prejudice or by discrimination, they experience high depression and anxiety. They kill themselves at very high rates. They have a lot of drug addiction problems, a lot of sex addiction problems. Their relationships are unstable. They have a lot of domestic violence and sexual assault. And they use steroids. All of these things are from the fact that it's a community that's based on very superficial things, and that connection that happens in sex never happens. And so it becomes a cancer eating away at everything, not just your love life, not just like your sex life, but also you start to become a difficult coworker. You start to become a difficult family member. You start to become a difficult neighbor that is not going to mix well with the challenges faced by your average Black or Latino man. A lot of kids are growing up without dads. The women in our community need men to make love to them, marry them, father children with them, and stay around and take care of them and provide for them. And if you can get your child to grow up to be a father figure, to be the man of the household, everything is going to be better. That moment when you think that you're going to be living the life that you see in the photographs that they put on pro-gay websites, where there's two guys and they're holding hands and they just look so happy and they're holding this newborn baby that they bought from a surrogate mother, that never happens. And your unhappiness is going to take down other people in the community with you. But I hope that this personal narrative and this overview is a good introduction to what will be a series guiding you through what's happening in your kids' schools and why you need to get involved.